Hello and welcome to today's edition of Route 664. All about, and when we talk about endowment engineering, we talk about creating endowment for individuals that they cannot outlive, that are used to support them in the lifestyle that they're used to living in, never having to change no matter how long they live. And the endowment that we create that way, or help create that way, is the one that's going to get passed on into the community when that individual passes, and that makes two endowments: one for them while they're alive, one for them when they pass. And to that end, we've opened up the Discovery 664 Academy, which is an ambassador program where we want you to become familiar with what we're doing in terms of the financial literacy that we are teaching, what we're teaching about how to get along in um, your endowment that you build free of financial hazard, safely, and all of those chapters that we've created in Discovery 664 Academy and that we will be creating in the future are designed to educate you on how to do the things that are necessary that you need to do. One of the courses that we teach, one of the courses that we've had on Discovery 664 is the 5 documents. We call the 5 necessary documents. And these are very important. And I have as my guest today, Oscar Vasquez. Oscar is the
I'm one of the founding members of
State Doc Prep, and so a State Doc Prep is is the place to go if you want to solve or get the 5 documents because it's part of that process. So the 5 documents that we talk about are will, a durable will and a surrogate health statement, and a funded revocable trust, living trust. And also we include as one of the 5 recommendations is the 664 trust, or the child remainder trust. That's one of the social charity tools that we use to create endowment. So, Oscar, what is the reason that most people don't do what they're supposed to do with regard to these documents?
I got to tell you, first of all, I want to say thank you for allowing me to come on your podcast on my crusade of bringing awareness to estate planning. I got on this journey probably about 6 months ago and try to find a way to be able to bring awareness because I read an interesting statistic. 68% of homeowners do not have an estate plan, and they're the ones that are guaranteed to go to probate. They're guaranteed. So it only came to one conclusion. The conclusion I came up with was that people don't know what happens if they don't prepare. They don't know what happens to them. They don't know what happens to, I would say, the 2 things that are nearest and dearest to your heart. One is your kids, and the second is your money, right? And those are the two nearest thing, closest things to your heart. And I think that people don't do it is because there's a lot of misconception that it's only for the wealthy. But here, I always tell people this. I said, you want to know how wealthy you are? If you're going to go to probate, Google what is the threshold to go to probate in my state. For example, if you say what is the threshold to go to my state, go to probate in California, it's going to come up with 184.5. If you Google that in Colorado, it's going to come up with $60,000. In Indiana, it's going to be 60, and I mean 50, and in Utah, it's going to be 100,000. That means in every state of the land, they have their own threshold. And it always goes to, because I always tell people this, there's nothing in California that if you own a home, it's worth more than 184, period. So every one of us are going to go there. So to answer your question, I think that people don't realize what happens in probate. So I love to go right into the ugly part of if you don't have these documents, what really happens, and give you some stories that hopefully will shake you up. But I always tell people, I'm going to drop some nuggets. These are going to be some really good information to be able to have because once you know, you can't claim I did not know, because now you know. So I always tell people the only people that don't want to get an estate plan for their kids are the ones that hate their kids. Haven't had one yet.
Well, the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of the older generation have taken care of it because for some reason they got the message either because somebody had passed in their family, and I guess the older you are, the more times you've experienced what it is when somebody passes, and that it's not a picnic. It's emotionally draining, it's psychologically draining, and then it's financially draining. It's a really important time. So let's talk about what I consider to be one of the mainstays, one of the major documents in what we recommend is the inter vivos revocable trust. And I also want to throw in the word funded.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so important. Man,
Yes.
it's such an important step.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So
Okay.
what is that I just described? It's
Yeah,
an inter vivo revocable trust.
it's a revocable living trust.
Mhm.
A revocable trust is, and I'm going to break it down to as simple as I can get it so anybody can understand it. And here's what it is. A revocable living trust is a contract or an agreement between the grantor, which is usually the parents, and the trustee and trustee with the beneficiary, which are usually your kids, that the courts enforce. And the reason why they call it a contract is because there's legal binding terms on the agreement that if your kids don't follow your instructions, that means your kids will get in trouble, basically. I haven't had a child yet that was disagreeing with what the parents left them. However, it's an agreement. So one thing that you have to, so by knowing that, one, an attorney does not have to prepare it. One, what it has to have is a legal provisions per the state that you live in. That's it. The only difference between my estate plan, your estate plan, and the neighbor's estate plan is three things. One, our names of us and the beneficiaries. Two, the instructions that we give our kids on what we want to have happen with our stuff. And three, the stuff that we put in it, the assets. So in a nutshell, it's basically, to make it even simpler, it's a legal binding agreement of the instructions you give your kids when you pass. So that's basically what it is. And every state has a legal provision for it to be recognized. The living trust is the only document that prevents you from going to probate. And I'm going to tell you, if you want to get scared, go talk to your friends and family if they've ever been through probate.
I have to raise my hand. I'm raising my hand. I have a question and a statement.
Yeah, go ahead.
It avoids probate only if you put the property into the trust.
Yes. I was going to get into the provisions of the trust, but yes.
Well, one of the things that I, as an endowment engineer, the endowment engineering course that we offer, where this particular chapter is, it has to do with endowment engineer is a holistic planner. It's the most holistic financial planner there is, because he not only deals with the individual's financial situation, they deal with the family situation, they deal with the charity, the philanthropic situation, they deal with every facet of the individual, because you have to know that if you're going to engineer an endowment. So what I always ask to see when somebody always say to me, I said, "You have a will and trust?" "Oh yeah, no, I got a will and trust." I said, "Okay, let me see your Schedule A." And they look at me with like you're caught in the headlights, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What is a Schedule A? And I said,
Yeah.
If you don't know what a Schedule A is, that's a problem, because on Schedule A is where you list everything that is owned by the trust. And it's supposed to be an easy roadmap for your kids so that they don't have to go hunting all over the place to figure out what the heck is owned by it. Mm-hmm. So tell me what happens when they don't put it onto the Schedule A.
Well, I'm going to tell you.
You have property.
Yeah, I want to take one step back, because I'm going to tell you, if you use some attorneys, 95% of attorneys give you a 9-page document and say, you just paid us thousands of dollars. Here's a 9-page document, go fund it. And everybody that comes to our live seminars we always tell people, bring your trust. And you know what we ask them? And that's why I smiled when you said, show me your Schedule A. First thing I ask, whoever has a trust, okay, great. Go to the page that has a Schedule A. And they're like, I don't have one of those. I don't have one of those. I don't have one of those. And they're like, what is that? Right? And I always say, well, that is the third part to making a living trust an active living trust to protect your assets. So that's why I was smiling when you said that, because that is a question that is yet so simple, but yet so difficult, because you don't know. And I think that's why education is such a an important part. But what happens if you don't have your assets? If you don't have your assets in your trust that is protected, and it's the easiest way to transfer documents or assets, the first thing that happens is that you have to hire an attorney to go to probate. And in California, I know this for a fact because I've been in the real estate business for 28 years and I've been helping people try to avoid probate for 15. But some people still say, you know what? That's a good idea. I need one of those. I'll be back tomorrow. And their number comes up and they don't make it, right? So what the first thing that happens is they have to hire an attorney, and that's 6 to 8%. That means that 6 to 8% is going to get lost to an attorney. That means you left that attorney that inheritance. It is what it is. And let's just say on $1 million, okay, that's $80,000 that gets taken off to thin air, that somebody else got a benefit from your hard work, not your family and your loved ones. The second thing
unnecessarily.
Well, and I think it's because of the ignorance, right? It's being ignorant, not knowing what happens. And those that know, then it's just being stubborn. You know, I always tell them, hey, how many kids you got? You got 5 kids. Go get each one to put a couple $100 in and get because the benefit is for them, right? It's not for us, but us as adults, that's what we do. The second thing that happens in every state of the land, it becomes public record. And here's what the public record says. Oscar died. He died with this property, this address, and this is the estimated value, and this is what it has. It becomes public. Now, let me tell you, you can say, I don't care what people think. Well, here's what happens. We're in the world of scammers, right? Back when I was like 10, 15 years ago, it was the Nigerian, that my uncle that was a Nigerian prince inherited me 150 million. All I needed to do was send $5,000 to get that money. Yeah. Now they're calling us asking for target cards, right?
Exactly.
So that's the second thing. So one, you're exposed to scammers. That's not even private. It's not even the issue. It's your gullible kids are exposed to scammers. The third thing that happens is that all of your assets that are not in the trust goes to court, and there's a judge that has a stack of cases that are this big, says, who are the kids? Here it is. And they make the final decision on what happens to your assets. And that's where somebody gets accidentally disinherited. Right?
Let's go back. I got to ask you a question. My hand is raised.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why doesn't a will solve that problem?
Ooh, great question. You could tell you know what you're talking about. But the will is a 2-page document. If you pay an attorney, it's 5, right? 5 pages because they paid you $500, so they have more provisions. But a will is the instruction is a I love you, I leave you everything, but there's no legal provisions that prevent that from happening. 1, 2, a will still has to go to probate. The judge takes it into consideration. It has some weight if the judge reads it, right? But if they got 19 probate cases, you're just number 125, right?
So a will, just to make it clear, a will does not eliminate probate.
That's correct.
What about joint ownership?
A joint ownership, if it's joint tenants, you have the joint tenants in common they have the right of survivorship at that point. But it's I always tell people, listen, you got time unless you guys both die at the same time in a crash, right? Then you're both going to go to probate. But joint ownership, if it has a right for real property, we're talking about.
Right.
On real property, joint ownership, you have what's called the right of survivorship. And that's as joint tenants in common. 99% of the people that buy a house go husband and wife as joint tenants or sole.
Does that prevent probate? And does that prevent
the home will not have to go to probate. However, if because husband usually dies first, but when husband dies and wife is not a beneficiary or is a beneficiary even to the account, it's up to the banking institution to send it to probate if it exceeds $70,000 in cash. So if you have $70,000 in cash, depending on the institution, even if there's a beneficiary, because it exceeds a threshold, the institution may require you, freeze the account and require you to go have a probate hearing.
That's on a bank account. That's on a bank account.
On real estate,
yeah.
No.
Okay. Does that mean homestead real estate or any real estate?
Any real property. If
So
you hold tenant,
so you can pass real property without it going through, without it through pro, if it's tenants, that also escapes probate.
that is correct. However, some I can tell you from firsthand, Wells Fargo, if it exceeds $100,000, they require, because of the large amount, they require you to go to probate, even though it's not needed, but it's a banking policy with them.
Is that true? Is that also true with a trust-owned bank account?
No, it avoids it completely because
So,
it's private.
if Jane Doe is widowed, okay, Jane Doe has children, 3 children, and she passes and has that bank account in her name, what happens?
That if it's in the trust, if it's funded into the trust, or no?
If it's, let's say it's in and out of it, what happens when it's either way?
Okay, if the trust has title or is now the owner of the trust
So in
of
other words,
the
the
account
name on the account, the name of the account is
in the
Jane Doe trustee of the
yes,
Jane Doe Revocable Trust, and that's how that bank account is owned.
correct. It avoids probate altogether. It's a seamless transfer.
Okay.
No
Take
taxes,
another
nothing.
situation. Another situation. Jane Doe dies with a checking account, just Jane Doe. Okay, she's the only signature on the account. She
Yep.
passes.
If the bank, if for example in California the state law says if you have $60,000 or more, it goes in, but it's up to the because it meets the cash threshold. Every state has different provisions on what that threshold is. I think Indiana is
But
5,000.
if it's owned by her
It goes
outright,
to
if it's owned
probate.
by her outright. It's not owned by the trust. It's got to
That's
go to
right.
probate.
She's
That's
got to
what
go
my
to
point
probate.
was. And when it goes to, and when it's while it's in probate, can anybody use that money?
No, it's frozen. The
It's
account
frozen.
is completely frozen. Nobody has
So,
access to it.
so the difference is if you have a checking account and you have it in the name of a revocable trust, your revocable trust, nothing changes when you pass. But if you have it in your own name, everything changes when you pass because
That
it
is
gets
correct.
restricted. It gets, and then the courts are going to decide, and everybody's going to know what you have, and it's public knowledge, and it's going to cost you money to get your own money for your kids to get your own money. So, okay, Oscar, thank you. We're coming up to the end of the show, but I wanted to let the folks know that when they are looking at their planning for the future, whatever they're planning, that you are a resource, that your organization is a resource for people to use to create a trust. That is it require an attorney?
No, it does not.
Okay.
We are a state. We have created living trusts in all 50 states.
Okay. And is that trust, is it pretty much most of the trusts are, for the most part, most of the language is going to be in the state that it's in, with the exception of the things that you mentioned before, the things that make it unique. The names of the people that are involved, the assets that are involved, and what it is you want to happen to them. Those are the things that you need to decide. So it's not that complicated. It just has to be done. And
Yes,
if you
sir.
don't do it, it's just expensive, time consuming, frustrating, and all the things that go along with that. So get in touch with Oscar. Go to
Appreciate that.
go to your website, which
Yeah,
is
go. We have a free comprehensive estate guide where you can download it because there's a human element to creating a trust that people get intimidated. So we created the comprehensive living trust guide, and if you can get that at estate.prep/guide, I'll send you the link and you guys can link it there. I recommend you get it. That helps the human delay because the number one question that I get when people sign up, how long is it going to take? I said, if you sit down and can answer all the questions, you can knock this out in 45 minutes. It never happens because there's questions that never thought about and of what you want to have happen if this happens. And you go like, well, I didn't think of that. Right. And I always say, go think about that. But that's the best way to get a hold of me. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Les, for having me and bringing awareness to the community and for what you do as well.
Well, thank you. And check out our ambassador course at Discovery 664 Academy. And then also we are able to certify endowment engineers, similar to what we're doing now. We've become a unique profession in the sense that we have that holistic planning perspective, and you are a niche of that planning.
Wow.
In other words, all the things we do, we talk about the 5 financial hazards, dying too soon, living too long, losing your property by theft or destruction, getting sued by third parties, and getting disabled and having cost of medical care. Those are things we plan against. So when we talk about dying too soon, you're one of those people that we need to have involved, and we certainly welcome you to try, and we would like you to become an endowment engineer. That would be
love to look into that.
Yes. Thank you again for joining us, Oscar, on Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness. It's been very educational. I hope folks will understand now how important revocable trusts are. Living revocable trusts that are funded.
That's right. Funded is key.
Okay. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Do you have a C corporation with retained earnings and you want to take it out without tax? How about getting a tax deduction and increasing your personal income at the same time? Learn how in 12 minutes. Go to discovery664academy.com or endowamerica.com and join today. And we're back. The endowment, defining endowment is one of the things we find is people don't really fully understand some of the language that we're using. And some of the terminology is a little bit foreign. So I wanted to try and define some of the terms and make it easier to understand.
Grab a pen, paper.
And pencil.
Ooh,
or
pencil.
Pen, whatever.
So old.
Yes. Anyway, so an endowment is endowments are created, pool of capital is created to produce income. That pool of capital that is used to produce the income is producing endowment income, and that's why it's called an endowment. Most people think of an endowment as a charitable entity, but it's not only a charitable entity, it's also your personal endowment. So if you save nickels and pennies and you're saving coins, that's becoming part of your endowment. If you buy real estate, be part of your endowment. If you're buying stocks, shares of stock, that becomes part of your endowment. It's everything that you own. If you take your personal financial statement and you look at all of the things that you own that are assets, that's basically your endowment. That is the endowment that is not anything that's subject to loans, of course, reduces that endowment. So you'd have to take off. It's actually the assets of your what you own, and then the liabilities need to be reduced, and that gives you your net worth, which is basically your endowment. So your endowment equals your net worth. So if your net worth is to grow over time, the endowment will create more endowment income. The bigger you make the endowment, the more the income that it will produce. And the reason why you have all these things is to produce income, because income is the most important thing. So endowment income is what you want. When you're growing that endowment income, it's also beneficial to grow it without paying the most tax that you could pay. If you can pay the least tax while you're growing that endowment, that makes the endowment grow better. And the endowment, control of the endowment, it rests with you as an individual. Now that's the endowment support for yourself, but endowment also has a meaning in the charitable world, because the charitable world looks at your endowment and would like it to be theirs. They want to take your endowment and you give it to them, and then they have the income from that endowment. So that's the way that endowment is valuable to our social fabric, because it helps to support us individually, and then it supports somebody else at your passing. Now, how you maximize that does require some direction. And so we created the endowment engineer as the person that would help you create that endowment in the best way possible. So what does that mean? It means that the endowment engineer is going to look at your current position, look at what it is that you need as endowment income, and that is based on what your budget is. So, for example, if you're living on $100,000 a year, forget inflation, forget any changes in value. We're talking about today. If you're living on $100,000, and that includes, in a budget, you need to include everything that you pay for, including the taxes and insurance and real estate taxes and all the other things, entertainment and so on. But let's say your lifestyle is based on $100,000 a year in income. Then you want to be able to produce that income in your endowment, regardless of what you're doing. In other words, if you're working now and you're using that to produce your endowment, when you stop working, something else has to produce income to satisfy the endowment. You can't create income from nothing. You can't create it. If you're working, you're creating your income. So your income is coming, your endowment income is actually your work, plus any other income that you may get from other assets. But when you stop working, something needs to be there to replace that. So the endowment engineering process is to take an individual's current budget and provide for that for the rest of their life, regardless of how long they live. That is the objective. So there are no changes made when you go through what they call retirement. I don't think retirement is an appropriate word anymore. Endowment engineering basically helps you live a life without retiring as far as the use of money or the spending of money. What happens, what people visualize retirement sometimes as they're living a great life, and then all of a sudden they retire and they have to cut back and they have to reduce the amount they're spending and they have to live in a different way than they were living before. That's retiring from your life. We don't want you to retire from your life. We want you to maintain your life for as long as you live.
Retirement's boring.
Yeah, retirement is boring because you're not doing anything,
It's just boring.
And so the idea is that you want to be able to continue to do things and be vibrant your entire life and not have to worry about money and not have to worry about the income. So that's why creating the most endowment that you can is very important, and doing it favorably with tax avoidance. So endowment engineers are trained to look at your current assets and see where there might be a tax problem or where a tax problem will come up. And what's a tax problem? A tax problem is when you have an asset that you're going to sell and convert to something else. If you have to pay tax to do that, that's a tax problem. And so endowment engineers are trained to use all of the financial planning tools that are available, plus all of the tools of social security. Now, that's a new term in what you've never heard before. But
I would say that this would be the example where taxes are not a problem.
right. Taxes become no problem. In fact, you can use the tax law to your advantage by using the social security tools. And that's part of the endowment engineer's skill set. They have the knowledge and the understanding of how those social security tools work. So social security, the term, comes from combining social security and charity, smashing them together to make social security. And we did that because social security is a
not.
form of endowment. It's, you pay the government, you put money into the government's collective trust, and then they give you an income when you reach a certain point or you qualify for it under certain circumstances. That is an endowment created by your money to the government. So the same thing is true with social security, where you're taking your property and you're putting it into a trust, and then eventually that's going to provide you with income. Here's the difference, though. The difference is that with Social Security, when you pass, you have no control over where that money goes that you accumulated all those years. It just disappears into the government's ether. But with Social Security, it's different. You have the right to determine where that's going to go into the community that you live in or the communities around you, whatever purpose you want it to serve, it's going to be good. And so what it does is it creates significance in all of us. And there's an anonymous quote that I've always heard, which was, man is not afraid of dying, he's afraid of dying with insignificance. And I think that it's important that we all have significance, and you can create that significance by leaving your endowment behind where you want it to go when you pass. So endowment engineering is a way to make what you do really what you want. A lot of people don't explore what it is that they really want to do. We use the term genius. We focus on you working at your genius and doing what you love to do 24 hours a day, never get tired of. If you could do that for the rest of your life and have all the income that you need and never have to worry about running out of money, and you're able to support what you want to do and all the things that you love, what could be better than that for all of us? And that's the individualism that we're reaching out to. We're trying to create that economic individual in all of us. And there's nothing that stops you from doing that except a lack of knowledge. So if you want to find out more about it, go to Discovery 664 Academy.
Yeah.
Discovery664.com.
Yes.
Become an ambassador and you may become an engineer, an endowment engineer. That's part of the curriculum that you'll learn about, and you'll be able to create a profession.
Oh, real quick.
Yes.
Route664.org tonight, Thursday and or Sunday at 11 a.m. Tonight, Thursday, 7 p.m.
Great
Jazz show.
Great jazz.
Check it out.
Yeah.
It should be good. And it's brought to you by the Endow America Network Foundation, which we thank you so much.
One of the things we promote very much. We love
The
music,
arts.
the arts.
The arts.
You also
Jazz
have an
around the
opportunity-
world,
Yeah.
actually, is the theme tonight.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Going around the world in jazz,
All
folks.
right.
It's going to be a great trip.
You'll
Join
be-
me.
You'll be in Brazil, I'm sure.
Oh, we will be. We'll be in Tokyo, Middle East somewhere.
Thanks for joining us this week, and we'll see you again next week. Have a great week.